Hello and welcome to The Hearing, our music review show here on the John and Scotto YouTube channel. I'm John.
And I'm Scotto.
And before we get to this week's album, we have some feedback from last week's episode. We really need to post episodes in fan groups more often. Last check, over 350 views on the Bandmade review, 9 likes, although admittedly one of them was me, and 4 comments, which is what I'm about to read.
All right, nice.
4 distinct comments from 3 different people. One I'm going to rush to get kind of put together. Again, and just ahead of time, in advance, apologies if I mispronounce anybody's username. Oh, by the way, we had a new sub this week, new subscriber, and a new sub when Jen was on. So, hello to the new subscribers. Thank you.
Welcome.
Onto the feedback. This is from Tiago Pinto.
Be gentle.
He said, they're all very good. One little criticism, but they were very gentle, but very.
That shall haunt me for the rest of the evening.
Tiago Pinto said, "Great review, guys. I've personally become a big fan of Bandmade and J-Rock over the last few years. Would you consider doing a review on another Japanese band, Maximum the Hormone, either their Yoshu Fukushu album or on an album called Buiki Kaisu? Yes, I practiced that. Would be great." Particularly Buiki Kaisu, I had to practice that a bit. I looked at both of them. Maximum the Hormone are a very interesting band. Okay. I think you'll like them. Yoshu Fukushu has 15 songs. Buiki Kaisu has 13. I put Buiki Kaisu on the list because you said 15 was a bit too much with the Bandmade album. So, thanks you for the compliment and the recommendation, Tiago Pinto. And the Mighty Axe said, if you want to hear how Miku is progressing, they mean in reference to her guitar playing, listen to that live Blu-ray that came with the album. As I mentioned, there was a concert video that came with World Domination. She'll be right there in your left ear, holding it down quite nicely, just waiting for those dueling solos on the next album. While watching one of my viewings, I've seen it a few times, I pulled out my right earbud and just to hear Miku. And there's a little bit of bleed through the vocal mics, but you really can't hear Konami very much. And Miku's rhythm playing, even live, is solid as a rock. And then again, just after 3 years. As far as dueling solos, I think Konami is on record as saying she's not ready yet. Konami is teaching her.
Okay.
And Mighty Axe also said, "Gotta disagree about Can't Live Without You. The technical guitar bits are awesome, and I think this is one of Psyche's best vocal performances." Now, this is the one we were talking about when you compared her to Ann Wilson. So yeah. I agree. The vocal is very good.
Right.
I agree, one of her best. And the solo is one of the best on the album, I think.
I don't know if there's higher praise to give to someone to say they sound like Ann Wilson.
In those two respects, I agree with Mighty Axe. My issue with it, and the reason I said it should be later in the album, is that it's just kind of a one-note song, in that it's one level. There are no real dynamic shifts, no timing shifts. It's a good solid song, but it's a little monotonous in that respect. Whereas Play is very dynamic in terms of volume and a lot of stops and starts. And I think it just grabs you more and would be a better opening. Anywhere else in the album, I would have nothing bad to say about I Can't Live Without You.
Now remember it. Your criticism was it shouldn't have been the album opener.
Yeah. It's a really solid song. It's just Play is more dynamic. And I don't think I would have noticed if they weren't right next to each other. But I totally agree about the vocals and the guitar work.
Sometimes ordering, of your album is about contrast. You have to have your peaks and valleys.
Right. And it's possible that they put "Can't Live Without You" first, just as a mission statement that this is just it's a solid hard rock song. They want to start with that, but it's their second full length album, their 5th album, total. I think they're past mission statements at this point. And finally, Mick Xiang, again, apologies if I'm mispronouncing, said they have an all-English song on one of their previous albums, and the lyrics are really racy. They are referring to a song called "Don't Let Me Down" from New Beginning. The lyrics are very NSFW, kind of BDSM themed. Look it up.
They're dressed like maids, so I mean,
Well, actually, I'm glad you mentioned that. There was something else I wanted to mention, because I failed to mention this last week. There were a couple of things I wanted to mention last week that I forgot.
We just did a review of Guar and didn't mention the battle hour at all, did we?
Well, we did mention the maid costumes. But one thing I wanted to mention about the maid costumes, they are perceived very differently in Japan than they are in the West. In the West, it's kind of a fantasy thing. It's very sexualized. In Japan, they're just seen as cute. So
All
it's
right.
not a sexual thing. So with Bandmaid, the idea is these cute maid costumes contrasted with this hard rock music. I wanted to make that clear. I totally forgot last week.
I did
And,
not know that.
yeah, they're not sexualized in Japan at all. In fact, there's a cliche in anime, the cultural festival episode, where it's this school festival where the students have all these different businesses, and invariably there's a maid cafe, and you have these high school girls, and not sexualized at all, dressing up as maids. So yeah, it's a big cultural difference. Also, there's a description of Bandmaid that I've thought about for years, but I just forgot to mention. That I think sums up a lot of what we were talking about. Bandmaid is what hair metal should have been.
Okay, I can
You know,
see.
musically, they are effectively a hair metal band,
Oh yes,
and with the costumes, they're very dramatic, and it ticks all the boxes. But the music is so much better than most of what came out in the '80s. There was some decent stuff in the first wave in around '85, and some of
but
Ozzy's early stuff. But
that's every musical scene we've ever had. You have
this is
that
true.
first,
This is
you
true.
have the first wave of pioneers who are just like, "What the fuck are these
Mhm.
guys doing?"
Right.
Then you've got the second wave that do the same thing, only it's a bit more for the masses, kind of.
Right.
And then by the time you get to the third or fourth wave, you're just kind of like, "We've done this already." I had to
Exactly.
explain to somebody why Nickelback was
Uh-huh.
not something people hate. And I that's pretty much it. They were like the fourth wave of
Nickelback was
grunge.
well, no, they were like 10th wave. They came around in like the thousands, didn't
Well, you have the Pearl Jam, Nirvana.
they?
I guess you could even say there were the Pixies before them.
Right.
So you could,
Pixies
yeah,
were kind of like the Pixies were kind of like the Talking Heads were to New Wave.
right,
They
right.
were the precursors.
So yeah, I wasn't even counting them in the wave of grunge because
Right.
everybody counts Pearl Jam, Nirvana. But yeah,
Right.
you get the Pixies first, then Pearl Jam, Nirvana, then you had Stone Temple Pilots right after on them, and
Mhm.
then you had Creed,
Right.
and then you had Nickelback.
Well, and you had there was another wave in there you kind of could say is Matchbox 20, Gin Blossoms were
Oh,
really
Gin
commercial.
Blossoms were around the same time as like Stone Temple Pilots,
Were
and
they?
yeah,
Because that was sort of grunge really
that was when
commercialized.
we were on radio, man. That's when we were playing all this
I thought they
stuff.
were much later. Okay. But those two bands particularly were, and I think Train to a lesser extent, it was kind of taking from grunge, but really watering it down. It was the trickster of grunge.
So right, it's every trickster.
They're my go-to reference for when they're going to look at it.
When a genre needs to be put to rest.
Yeah,
But it's funny with hair metal though, you had so many people that were angry that this was upending it, and it was kind of like, but it's played out.
yeah.
It's
We're
time.
done.
Right, right. And so yeah, I could see where you're saying that,
Mhm.
and
And Nickelback was so much later, so they were really just doing a thing that was 10 years old and
well,
doing it
right,
poorly.
right.
Anyway, on to this week's album, which is from 2017, Brick Body Kids Still Daydream by Open Mike Eagle. You put this one on the list.
Yes, I've been a longtime fan of a show. It was once called Ron and Fez, now it is called
Mhm.
Bennington. And I'm not even sure how they got hooked up with him. Oh, he was a fan too.
Oh, okay.
And he actually did a song about digging that Ron and Fez show. Like
Nice.
set, he sampled some Bowie underneath it and everything. And it was
Mhm.
just hilarious. But he's he doesn't want to be a comedian. There's one of the song about how to label him on
Mhm.
this. Um, he wants to. I mean, obviously, be taken seriously as a rapper too. And so I started listening to, when Spotify came along, it's like, whoa, he's on here too. And it was kind of like, hearing some of his older work. And I think I originally had some of his earlier work on here.
Well, yeah, one of his early albums, Dark Comedy, was your first choice.
Right. But this just kind of blew me away when it came out last year. Not to
Not to
not to
spoil.
spoil how the review is going to go,
Uh,
but yeah, if I recommended it, of course. If I was like, no, we got to do this one instead, you kind of know
yeah,
I
yeah,
like
yeah.
the damn album.
And just by way of introduction, Open Mike Eagle is an American alternative hip hop artist originally from Chicago, who is now based in LA, where he's a member of the hip hop collective Project Blowed and also a member of Thirsty Fish and Swim Team. Eagle describes his music as art rap and
He's
cites.
also working on a show for Comedy Central. I think it's called The New Negroes. He's just started
Okay.
filming that. That should be coming out in the fall, I think.
He describes his music as art rap and cites They Might Be Giants as one of his biggest
Yes.
influences.
He samples the spider on one of his albums, or They Might Be Giants. And yeah, he is to hip hop what They Might Be Giants is to rock. I mean, there's a whimsy to it, you know? I mean, he opened up a lot to me in like alternative rap and what it is. Yeah, I mean, Serengeti, which I mean, that's another one we'll be doing in the future, of course.
And there's a history of alternative hip hop as well, which I'll be
Of
getting
course.
into. But just real quick before we get to the album officially, this is his sixth solo album, and it's a concept album about the Robert Taylor Homes, a public housing project in Chicago.
Yes, it's about 40 blocks from where I work, or 80 blocks from where I live, something like that. It's south side, I'm north side.
And on to track one, which is Legendary Iron Hood, produced by Exile. And I'm going to be mentioning the producers for each track because in hip hop, from what I understand, and you listen to a lot more than I do, the producers really is the one who writes the music.
I don't know.
Came up with the track, but the producers are responsible largely for the backing track. Obviously the rapper is the vocal and the lyrics. That's as I understand. And if any hip hop fans out there know better than me, please correct me.
I think in this case, I think he does a lot of the stuff himself.
Okay. This album has a different producer for each track, and they're listed very prominently. So I assume they have something to do with the production, with the sound.
Seeing him live, is really crazy because it is just him and like the sample machine keyboard, and he's just going off on this microphone and flipping different switches and playing different chords and whatnot on his own. It's looks just tough as hell though.
And again, back to Legendary Iron Hood. Love the sort of old soul sample going on in this.
Yeah, like some early 80s jazz and some video games, maybe, I'm thinking of.
It sounds to me like Motown.
Yeah.
Like classic Motown horns and strings with this ongoing guitar solo. That isn't just a recurring sample. It kind of goes through, it kind of comes in and out throughout the track.
Yes, right.
Which I loved. And speaking of his rap style and alternative hip hop, the history of it, I'm sure a billion people have drawn this in comparison, because it's really obvious, but he reminds me a lot of Snoop.
Really?
But that sort of low-key, mellow rap style that.
Okay. Yeah.
I know, not being much of a hip hop fan, I know that as Snoop, originating with Snoop.
I know in dark comedy makes fun of guys that rap like this.
Yeah. He was the first one I heard with that softer, low-key style. So maybe the originator before then, but that's what I'm hearing. And also just his phrasing reminds me of Speech from Arrested Development. Who were one of the early alt hip hop bands.
Okay. Like trying to think.
Not the series Arrested Development, the band Arrested Development.
Bateman or David Cross?
No, the band Mr. Wendell.
Yes, Arrested Development. I forgot all about those guys.
Yeah. They were one of the early alt hip hop bands, that I was aware of. And his not his tone, but his phrasing reminds me a bit of Speech. But you've got bands like them, De La Soul, even PM Dawn, going back. And I think he borrows from all of them, or there's an influence at least. I don't know if he necessarily borrows, but he's clearly in that.
Oh lineage. Yeah, I think PM Dawn's even mentioned in this album.
Yeah,
Open Mike Eagle to PM Dawn.
Yeah, Open Mike Eagle is clearly in that lineage.
Just the references he drops. I mean, clearly Canadian. Like I thought I was the only one that remembered clearly Canadian. But then again, I was going out with the Canadian at the time, or started going out with the Canadian at the time, so it was like, we got clearly Canadians to drink.
Yeah,
It was kind of a big deal.
I keep mentioning to you that another hip hop album we'll be reviewing in the near future. MC Frontalot's Final Boss has a song called Canada that is a gift to you. And back to the song.
So yeah, this I feel was kind of a has the feel of a typical rap song. Like he's
Mhm.
not off the reservation that much. He's
No.
trying. I think he's trying to bring in an audience that you know would be a typical rap
Mhm.
listener
But
to this
one
more
thing
than
he
anything
does on
else.
this throughout the album that I really like is the samples just don't repeat, robotically.
Oh right.
They vary throughout the song. He brings in just different sounds, and
Oh, there is one where it just kind of builds up,
there is one, and
frenetically.
it's one of my few criticisms.
I think I know which one you're going to talk about.
Um, on to track two, How Could Anybody Feel at Home, produced by DJ Nobody. This starts with what, as far as I can tell, is a mellotron.
I think of it as one of those films you'd see in school back in the
Yeah,
70s.
it's a very 60s, early 70s kind of sound. I'm pretty sure it's a mellotron. And then this nice clicky percussion comes in,
I was
sets
going
up
to
this
say, is that
great
like a
groove.
samba?
It could very well have been just like the percussion on an organ. That's what it sounded like.
Yeah,
But not it's sampled because it's programmed into something you would never get on an organ.
right.
But it was just this really nice groove. And this is the first song where he does, again, something he does throughout the album, where he straddles the line between rapping and singing.
Oh, yeah, this one, like, I think when I first heard this, I was kind of like, wait, what? Like, it was one of those, like, I think I need to come back and listen to this another time because I don't understand what I'm even hearing, kind of thing.
Yeah. Actually, when you recommended Dark Comedy, I went and listened to it, and it just didn't connect with me for some reason. And I respected it. I appreciate the genius of it, but it just didn't connect.
It's
And
not as solid as of an album as this,
well, this one connected more, and even this I had to hear last night when I reviewed it. Is not the first time I heard this album.
Mhm.
I really had to sit with it a few times and really get my head around the music. And I'm still gonna have to sit with it a few more times to get my head around the lyrics. I really don't have many comments about the lyrics.
Yeah, the lyrics are just, well, they're just so fast. I mean, I don't think I've ever actually sat down and read a copy
Mhm.
of them, but just catching little things here and there when he's just going off on them, it's
Yeah.
just it's wonderful when you get it. You're like, oh,
And in this one, he does a nice increase in the intensity because he
yeah.
starts off very soft, and in each verse he just gets a little louder and a little louder until he gets to the chorus.
It's clearly one of the strongest off the album, though. I'm kind of like wondering how it wasn't a single, honestly.
This is the one where the chorus sticks in my head.
Yes. The lyrics are, right in all my fantasies and I die in all my dreams. I done told some goofy shit just sound like a poem.
Mhm. On to
But
track. Okay.
I don't think I've ever heard this vivid a picture of growing up in the projects.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, you hear it, it's explained to you, but I mean, you don't like wrap your head around it
Right. Yeah.
if you've never lived in
Mhm.
that.
Exactly. Yeah.
But this, like, just all of the imagery that he throws at you, smelled like someone boiled a rose. I mean, it it's just such a sensory thing that
Yeah. Yeah. Mhm.
you immediately smell like that crazy perfume
Right.
smell that he's describing.
Mhm.
And yeah, you kind of feel like you're there, and it's scary. Hey, I'm a white guy, I can say that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And on to track three, Hymnal, featuring Samus, who I have heard of before, who I've heard a couple times, produced by Andrew Broder. This starts off with what I can only describe as science fiction sounds. They're like
Right.
something you would hear like laser blast sound and such.
It's hard to believe this is only 3 minutes
Mhm.
because there's like a couple of different parts to it.
Yeah.
There's the quiet rap at the beginning that he does. Then there's this goofy chorus in the middle.
It's another nice melodic chorus, and the groove really comes in slowly.
Yeah,
It takes its time developing. I wasn't really sure where it was going to land.
with this goofy ass chorus, he builds this crescendo.
And then Samus comes in to end it.
Yes.
which was a really nice change of pace, and it was interesting ending with the guest.
Yeah. Yeah, and it just, I mean, you kind of expect it to go on to be milked for a
Mm.
few more minutes, but nope, he's out.
I'd heard of Samus a couple of years ago. She's largely a nerdcore rapper. Um,
I have not.
Nerdcore is a thing. Nerdcore rap is a thing. Um, MC Fernald's another one. So I'm aware of that side of things, and I like what I've heard. I need to look into more of her stuff after hearing her on this. I like her voice. All right, on to track 4, No Selling, Uncle Bush Pretending It Don't Hurt, produced by Kenny Siegel. This is fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
First off, he's rapping over a vocal. Like the sample they use is a vocal that he's
Right.
rapping over. So you
And
get this chaotic mix of the two voices with this huge bass sound.
this is a dude, though, that has sampled Cookie Monster in the past.
Wow. I see the TMBG influence now.
Yeah. But yeah, it takes you a while to figure out what that sample's saying. Of course, it's repeating, "I don't work here."
Mm-hmm. And then it completely changes on the second, I'm going to say second verse, but the idea of verses and choruses in this one are a little iffy.
Yeah.
Somewhere in the song, it just completely changes.
He plays with those expectations.
Mm-hmm. And it's just, I don't know if I like it, but it's fascinating. And something like that I don't know if, I love it when I don't know if I like something initially. Like, I don't dislike it or like it. It has to grow on me. That's always a good sign for me.
Like, then the whole theme of the song, the oppressiveness of carrying that masculine front. You know, a lot of this album is growing up in the projects.
Yeah. Well, it's a concept album about the Robert Taylor home. So yeah.
And sometimes it's about, other people, I feel, are trying to get along today, or how he's seeing other people growing up today, or it's his own experiences. And yeah, just the whole, I haven't cried since '94, and just.
I really need to go in and really pay attention to the lyrics on this one.
I think one of my favorite lines of the whole album, though, is like what was it? He had an asthma attack in the last bar.
What?
Yes. So, which I'm thinking is like the last bar of the song.
Uh-huh.
He had an asthma attack.
Wow.
And the way he delivers it, is like, I had an asthma attack on the last bar. Absolute perfection.
On to track 5, Happy Wasteland Day, produced by Exile. This is another one where he brings in a guitar. There's a few tracks where he actually uses like a lead guitar sample, which, being a guitar player, I loved. Although it did get a bit old because he just repeats it over and over. This is one of those cases where the sample repeats.
I think that's the point, though.
Yeah, but it just got a little tiring after 4 songs of not doing that.
Because the thing is, I mean, if there was if you were to make a soundtrack for this era of life, living in 2018 or 17, this song has to be on it, because it's just, can you not fuck with us for one day?
Yeah.
I this should have been a single too, honestly, or a movie or TV show needs to pick it up, because it's just fatigued despair.
Yeah.
Just like, because the answer, of course, is no.
Right.
They're not going to stop fucking with us. And of course, spoiler alert, the whole fucking project gets torn down in the end.
Oh, okay. and this is another one, and along those lines, the vocals just rise in intensity throughout the song.
Yeah, but this is more about violence and in the community.
He's usually very low key and very soft, but he really uses those dynamics well when he needs to, and especially at the end, where it's just this sort of almost not whispered, but kind of almost meandering vocal that it goes off on.
Yeah,
he's kind of muttering something at the end.
It's just you keep throwing your hands up in the air, because it's never going to stop.
On to Daydreaming and the Projects, produced by Illingsworth. Loved the percussion in this. It was just this great sort of off-kilter drums. Like there was
Sending
a
them,
rhythm, but it was just off-kilter with this 70s synth that sounded
yeah,
like,
like a mid-70s jazz fusion feel.
or like CBS, their old like interstitial music. It was an early synth, very 70s, and these muted horns in the chorus that were a really
Yeah,
nice touch. Um,
and this is pretty much your unofficial title track.
yeah,
Uh, Music really hadn't been all that prominent in the album until for a little bit until this song came, brought it back.
yeah,
And I think he's doing both, talking about his own childhood and you know, what imagining what children are going through today.
right. Mhm. On to track 7, I think probably the other unofficial title track, Brick Body Complex, produced by Caleb Stone. This one, I don't know if it starts with a backward sample or just electronic noise, but it's fascinating, very 80s sounding, very 70s into 80s, early days of home computers. And a nice busy drum track. Again, melodic vocals this time on the verses. I really can't decide if I think he's singing or rapping.
Yeah, I mean, I think this again, this is another one with has more of the mainstream rap feel to it. I don't want to say typical again because I don't want to repeat myself, but I guess I
Yeah.
just did. Um, yeah, but that the stressful chords that keep building underneath to just bring the tension up
Yeah. And that
towards the.
that electronic sample is very grating. It's kind of like modem sounds almost, you know. So it's not a calming sound. It is very intense.
Oh yeah, yeah. Again, there's an oppression. It's
Mhm.
just there's no rest.
Right. On to track 8, TLDR Smithing, produced again by Illingsworth. Another great guitar sample. I just got to call those out because I'm a guitar player, and I'm surprised to hear them on a hip hop album.
I'm trying to figure out what it was he sampled, though. I mean,
I would
I
love to know half of what he sampled because I want to go back and listen to the originals.
like, was it something from Break My Stride? Like, did he take that guitar sound
There's
and took it to this melody?
there's no
You
noticeable
know, so I'm
guitar on
talking
here.
about Break My Stride from
Yeah,
that
from
early
the
80s.
early '80s. There's no noticeable guitar on that song.
Yeah, there kind of is. It's kind of like that kind of sound to it.
I have to go back and listen
It
to
would fit
both of
in
them.
pretty,
Mhm.
or is it Queen's "Can't Stop Me Now" kind of the guitar?
Possibly. I don't know what it is. But this one, the vocal styles it is very different. It's very aggressive. The
Yes.
music was really jarring, but which I liked. And I really couldn't get a sense of the groove. It was just this really interesting, off kilter song, but in an aggressive way, not in a quirky way.
Right, and it's relentless. This one.
Mhm.
This one is the one I thought you were talking about because the sample just repeats.
That I liked it this time for some reason.
Okay, I thought this is what you're talking about.
That was the last one.
But
Um,
he's doing that for effect, where
yeah.
it's just building the tension up.
Mhm. I
And
think because the vocals were so much more aggressive, that caught my attention, and I didn't really notice the sample repeating. Maybe.
I don't know if I cared for the gag of the song was too long. I should have checked first. So that okay, we did laugh, so I guess it does
Yeah,
work.
yeah. On to track 9, Breezeway Ritual, produced by
Right.
Lo-Fi,
So all of that cacophony, just runs into this brick wall of silence right after it.
and then video game sounds,
Yes. Just
which were
slightly.
surprisingly somber
Yes.
and mellow for video game sounds. And he doubles his voice,
Oh yeah.
which just gives it this sort of almost creepy quality.
Well, especially for the line he's using that on. What if there's a god but they scared of us? That he repeats over and
Yeah.
over, and you're just kind of like, yeah. What if?
And it's just the complete opposite of TLDR, where that was all loud and jarring.
Right. Exactly. It's the peaks and the valleys.
Mhm.
He runs us into the wall, and now we're sort of underwater. I've
And this,
completely mixed my metaphors, but it's getting late, guys.
and this starts a trilogy, in a sense, I'm using that term lightly, of 3 relatively short songs. They're all like 2 and change. They're like a minute shorter than
Right.
anything else on the album. The next, this one, and the next two.
he milks nothing.
Yeah.
Everything is just okay. If it's hard to get bored of something because he's in and out very quickly.
Yeah. On to Wedding Ghost, track 10, another melodic vocal. And the bass, there's this distorted bass on this song that sounds familiar, but I can't place it. It's like a static sound. It
Yeah,
seems.
I think this is probably the weakest track on the album if I had to pick one,
Mm.
because the storytelling to me is a bit more vague. Kind of. If you would invite me to your wedding, you would invite me to your funeral.
Mhm.
Um,
You didn't invite me to your funeral, so why do you invite me to your wedding? Which is, I'm still trying to get my head around the temporality of that.
yeah, yeah. Now that you mention it, yeah,
I mean, he mentions ghosts, so there's something in it. There's an afterlife reference there, but I'm not quite sure what it is.
yeah. So I guess you can figure it's about
Mm.
people gone out of his
Yeah, yeah.
life.
On to track 11, 95 Radios featuring Haslo and produced by Haslo. This is the third of the really short tracks. And again, very mellow, nice subtle guitar that you don't even really hear until the end when the vocals cut out.
And this is so universal. This one, I
Yeah.
mean, universal to people of our age, I guess,
Okay.
because
Yeah,
this
yeah,
is
because
back to
radio.
the days of when you wanted to hear something on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the frantic, like, I need a tape ready to record it or something. I mean, or when are they going to play it again?
I still have cassettes that I recorded off the radio in the early 80s.
Oh, yeah. I
I wish
wonder.
I had a tape player.
That's true. I don't know where the hell my tape players are anymore. I don't think I have any more. But I have tape still.
Mhm. All right, on to track 12, the ending of the album, My Auntie's Building, produced by Twilight.
I would say the difference, though, for 95 radios, um, for them, though, it's a distraction
Well, yeah, of course.
from the grim realities. For us, it was
Yes.
kind of
Yes.
the thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Uh,
which brings us to my
the
auntie's
track
building,
12,
which
My
is
Auntie's
the
Building.
grim reality.
Yeah. Yeah. Very dramatic. This one was almost industrial.
Oh yeah, yeah. He gets into some Nine Inch Nails shit here.
And he's actually singing, like harmonizing at the end. And it's just this chaotic noise
Yeah,
that is
it's
just a hell of an ending for the album.
right. It's I don't even think I forgot how many listens it took before I realized he was saying they're tearing my body down.
Mhm.
That just because I mean it's so low and underneath everything else, and yeah,
And
it's just
that
something I
explains the title, which I had to think about. I think I just got the title of the album, Brick Body Kid Still Daydream.
yeah,
The brick body part never really connected with me. Now I get it.
yeah. So yeah, it's the destruction of the projects, which um uh, in white circles had always been treated as such, like, see, it's a good thing we're tearing this thing
Mhm.
down, and they won't have to live like this anymore, but it's still home.
Yeah, yeah,
It's what this brings back.
right.
And yeah, just some of the lines of this song. They won't demolish your timeshare. I mean, yeah, he
Uh,
really goes for it, and it does leave you just like, whew. It for a white person, it leaves you with a lot to think about in the end.
and the rage in it is just palpable
Yeah.
because it does it so big and loud and chaotic. But also he actually sings in it, which is brings this sort of sweet touch. It's really just a brilliant juxtaposition of the two.
Well, there's an anger and a sadness
Yeah.
to it all
I guess yeah,
happening.
bittersweet is the better way of putting it. Yeah.
And coincidentally, in the other show we did, and I'm talking about my old job, that old job was right where Cabrini Green used to be, pretty
Uh,
much. Like, it was in that neighborhood. Like, if you ever watched the show Good Times,
oh, okay.
the intro to that show, in Chicago and Cabrini Green, I'm like, look, that's where I work. Yeah. So, and yeah, like I said, it was something that was celebrated. It's a good step of progress for moving forward, kind of
Right.
thing. But reading about it, what was it? It was almost 30,000 residents there at the time,
Oh, yeah.
and almost 2/3 of them were just never even accounted for. Like,
Mhm.
what happened to them?
Yeah.
They did housing for only a third of the residents that were there,
Oh wow.
and almost 20,000. Just who
Yeah.
knows?
Right.
Hopefully they found some place.
Yeah.
But I mean, you're also talking about having a home and a place, people grew up in, and a stable nucleus, like going visiting Jersey, and the same place I grew up as a kid is
Yeah.
still there, and my parents and all
Mhm.
that. To just have that taken away from you for what?
Right.
For they have nothing even built in some of in some of the spaces that they've torn down. It's just
Mhm.
open fields still. Maybe look at a Target.
All right. So, I've, needless to ask this, but would you recommend it?
This when they kept talking about Kendrick Lamar last year, I was just like, he's not even in my top 3 rap albums of last year. This is way better.
Uh,
So yeah, I think it was. I mean, at least NPR was able to recognize it, but I think a lot more should have.
yeah. And I would definitely recommend it. Like I said, his stuff didn't really connect with me at first. Even this album on the first listen, I didn't get it. And then over time, it just really grew on me and connected. And I began to understand what he was doing. And I need to listen to it a lot more before I really can get my head around it.
I mean, I think it's cool that he's has this Comedy Central thing going, and I mean, I think when the last time he was on Bennington, he said, rapping just isn't gonna pay the bills, so
Mhm.
he can't really do it.
Yeah.
But god damn, I want to hear more from him.
Yeah.
And who does a concept album in any genre anymore?
Well, I mean, there are still concept albums coming out, and they're
Yeah.
actually becoming a thing in rock and still because they're coming back. But I would never have expected a rap concept album.
I mean, I'm sure there have been, um, but this does a lot of gut punches,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and he's just so vivid in a lot of his imagery. So yes, of course,
And
I'm
I would
recommending
too,
this.
and of course I would too. And the music is so quirky and so different
Yeah,
that it really kind of sets up a contrast with those intense lyrics. You know, he doesn't hold back on the lyrics, but then the music is just sort of off kilter and weird. So you don't. It kind of it's not this aggressive, punchy music like you get in a
right.
lot of hardcore rap. So it kind of there's an interesting contrast there.
Yeah, and yeah, there's no one note to it. He
Mhm.
definitely
Yeah, certainly.
he definitely keeps you off kilter while listening to it, and kind of challenges you, and you definitely have to come back to hear it again to get your head around it.
Mhm. All right. So until next time, when we'll be reviewing. Oh, I don't have it in my notes. I think it's Jake Shimabukuro, the Nashville sessions. Um,
Oh
it was
wow!
yeah.
And now for something completely
Well,
different.
that's what we've been doing.
Yeah.
We started off. I mean, Estrons and the Smithereens kind of similar, but
Yes.
the Smithereens we were going to do one of your picks, but then Pat Denizia had to go and die. Um,
Pat.
so that was going to be something very different. But those were two semi-similar. But then we went Information Society to Bandmade to this. I'm doing kind of a back and forth thing at the start here, just to show that we are the range of what we're doing. It's going to get a little similar down the line when we get into Ted Leo and we get in kind of a pop thing we get into kind of a pop thing for a while, or power pop, I should say, kind of alternative angle. Anyway, until then, please give this video a like if you enjoyed it and subscribe if you haven't. Down in the description, you'll find a link to this album on Spotify, as well as links to all of our social media, our blog, johnandscotto.com, links to subscribe to the audio version of this show on RSS and iTunes. A little more detail about that at the beginning of this week's Zombie Takeout, if you want to check that out. And
Of
our,
course.
our our email address, we will have a voicemail number as soon. It's going to be the same number as Zombie Takeout. I just have to genericize the message and take Zombie Takeout out of it.
Fuck the alphanumerically challenged.
It's going to be the same number. It's just I just have to take the Zombie Takeout out of the message, the outgoing message. And I already said what was coming next week. Jake Shibabukuro, the Nashville Sessions. Until then, always remember, never forget, wherever you go in life, there you are.
There you are.